Welcome to Tangled and Splattered, where our paintings sometimes shape up quite nicely. Today's inspiration is bubbles. I enjoy painting shapes and had a nickname of Bubbly when I was younger. I was obsessed with actual bubbles. I was probably older than most kids were when I stopped blowing bubbles. I honestly still find a lot of joy when I see bubbles out in the wild. If you like bubbles or painting, follow along where we try to paint a version of hyper-realistic bubbles. We'll be using our black watercolor paper, which isn't actually watercolor paper, I guess, but it's cool. We like to start by taping the edges with painter's tape, and we are going to use our compass tool, which is great for making the shapes of circles, so that we start with that. If you enjoy making geometric art, I definitely recommend getting good geometric tools like a compass tool. Obviously, not all bubbles, real bubbles, are perfect circles, but when painting, we do what we want, and I want circles. So today I wanted a lot of different size circles and used the compass tool for that. The last couple of times that I've painted bubbles or bubbly shapes, I've found my inspiration online and I just kind of went for it. I really wanted symmetry in those paintings. So for a couple of them, I really wanted to also mix a sparkle or splatter effect. So you can see that in the first inspiration section there. I'm still not trying to go for perfection here, but from the last couple of paintings I did of bubbles, I learned that the hyper realistic bubble paintings look a lot better from a distance than they do close up. So I try not to judge my painting too harshly when I'm staring at it really closely. Today's painting took only about an hour of actual painting time, and we're going to speed it up here so that you can see it in less than 10 minutes. If you are going for a more hyper realistic look, you may want to spend a little bit more time looking at your inspiration photos and mirroring those images, taking a bit more time with painting. So today I was going for loose and not necessarily symmetric. You can see I'm starting by outlining those circles with that white gouache paint. I just want to have some really nicely defined white circles here. Wherever I'm unhappy with how white that outline is, I just go over it with some more white. And then we let it sit for a little bit before we start adding colors. We decide what paintbrushes we want to use, and then we get them wet so that they're easier to use. And then we just start adding some color. So this one I think is magenta. I remember seeing a video once about how soap bubbles don't have red. And so before I painted these bubbles, I did a little bit more research online trying to pick better colors. When I look at the AEI overview on the interweb search, it says that the colors that are not found in soap bubbles are pure red, pure green, pure blue, or any other single pure color. The color from bubbles comes from light interference, which cancels certain colors. So today I was trying to pick the colors that I thought would work under those circumstances. I'm sure I didn't get it perfect, but the colors that I'm using are in the description of this video. Speaking of the colors, we are talking about the Gouache paint. The Gouache paint. The reason I chose this paint today is because I was feeling like I wanted to do some watercolor painting, but I really like this kind of more pigmented look that this type of paint can provide. And I had some new paints, new gouache paints to try to use. So I took this opportunity to use those. And you'll see here that I have this kind of plastic palette. This is also new to me, something I wanted to start trying to use. On the bottom right, you'll see that there's this kind of wet paint palette where there's a sponge underneath, a wet sponge underneath, and kind of a film, a paper film on top that I'm using to both keep the paints wet and mix colors if I wanted to mix colors. This may not be exactly my first time using this palette, but it's something new that I'm trying. So I'm really excited to see how this might help with painting. sometimes with watercolors and now gouache paintings, you have to step away from it for a little bit and let the paint dry, but then the paint on your palette might dry too. So it's nice if you can come back to it and still have paint that you can use. I also wanted to test and see how this gouache holds up against this black watercolor type paper. And you can see here, I'm going through because I'm not sure I like the pigment. I want more pigment coming through. So you can see that I'm going in and adding some more pigment to some of the existing colors on the paper. Now we're adding the sparkles, the shiny spot, the highlights, whatever it is you want to call this. This is what, in my mind, really makes the hyperrealistic bubbles stand out. You use that really bright titanium white color and you just go in and pick a spot and just let it shine. And well, I really feel like it kind of speaks for itself. When you see those spots on there, you can tell that that's where the highlight is of this bubble. That's where the light source is. And you can see that in this painting, there is no rhyme or reason for where those light sources are coming from. But there we are. And now we're going to do our paint tape peel. And this tape peel is where you really can start to see that this isn't actually watercolor paper. I only spent maybe an hour painting this and maybe 2 hours total between waiting for things to dry and coming back to it. And you can see the fibers of that paper are coming off on the tape when we're peeling the tape. So it does leave rough edges when you tape the edges like this, but that's fine. So here I am adding some borders to the painting. And another thing that has bubbles in it, it's not soda, guys, it's pop. So if you enjoy painting without the rules or crocheting without an official pattern, please like and subscribe. I enjoy making this content and look forward to reading your thoughts and ideas for what we can make next time.